Good Thursday morning. A little good news to you today from the book of 1 Peter. Thanks for tuning in. I enjoy reading through this passage in its context, verse by verse, seeing how practical Peter is to real life situations. And he's been talking about how to deal with injustice. He's talked about slaves who deal with it. He's talked about wives who might deal with an unrepentant, unruly husband. And then he goes to husbands, because the gospel will affect everyone who is in a power structure, if you want to look at marriage that way. And it seems that Peter is talking about structures that become abusive. And he's saying, husbands, if you've come to Jesus in the same way, so there's a message that applies to you, that applies to wives, that applies to slaves. And the common truth here is that you need to recognize that above all of this, there is a sovereign God who judges rightly. If that were not true, it wouldn't make any sense to exhort people to submit to an unjust authority. And so he says, husbands, in the same way, you who have come to Christ, be considerate as you live with your wives and treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. And so Jesus is saying, husbands, I know how you were taught to deal with your wives. There's a message that comes to you from the world, and he's saying, now that you've come to Christ, this idea of submitting to Christ and humbling yourself before Christ applies to you as well. And so as you live with your wives, you need to think of them in a Christian way. Consider it as you live with your wives and treat them with respect. That wasn't the case in many cultures today who have not been informed by Scripture. There is a strong tendency for husbands to look disrespectfully to their wives and to take advantage of perceived weakness. And Peter says the Christian husband regards his wife as a co-heir of the gracious gift of life. This is someone who is your sister, who has the same father, who has been entrusted to you for blessing. You are in a position as husband of having influence in her life, but you are not to abuse that, but you're to treat them with respect. Well, why? Because they bear the image of God just like you do, bro. You can't look on your wife and not see Jesus and the work that Jesus is doing in her. And to run slipshod over that and to think less of that, you just don't get it if that's the case for you. And so get it, he says. Respect your wife. And then Peter says, as a weaker partner. It would be odd if Peter were in this context to say something derogatory about a wife. Whatever this word means, he's not saying that it diminishes her in any way. And typically, I read this as a delicate partner, someone who needs to be cherished, not because they are intrinsically weaker, but God has given this person to you to cherish, to nurture, and to love. And you do that in the fear of God. And I just think that in very practical ways, when a man comes to Jesus and his life is transformed, the first place you want to see it transformed is in the home, how he treats this partner in his life. It's Christianity 101. It's one of the first principles of the faith. And husbands, let me just speak to you man to man. You need to do an inventory of your own life and say, to what degree is my faith in Jesus Christ reflected in the way I love and shepherd my wife? Do I invest in her? Do I seek her good? Do I love her in the example that Jesus gave me? And so husbands, I just want to encourage you to allow the gospel to affect the way that you love your wives. It's probably the best way of determining if you really are saved, to live with your wives in an understanding way of the gospel. Well, that just goes to show how interested God is in the small things in your life, the things that you do in your own home. It's not enough to come to church and worship God, but God is saying, how does it manifest itself in these relationships where you either have power over someone or you are under someone else's power? The gospel affects all of that. And I hope you're encouraged by that today, to think distinctively and Christianly about the way that you treat people who are over you or who are under you in some sense. Well, God bless you, and thanks for allowing me to come into your home and reading some scripture. I hope it's been an encouragement to you. It's a little blessing for your day. Thanks for watching. Well, when we started doing these Little Good News such a long time ago in March, I read for you Anne Murray's song, We Sure Could Use a Little Good News. Just kind of, we were on the fly. Didn't know it would last more than 2 weeks, but I've really enjoyed coming to you every morning and doing these readings. But now that we're gathering again on Sunday, and I hope that you can find a way to gather, this will be our final recording of a Little Good News. You can still read the good news from 1 Peter, and I may do one from time to time, but as far as a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday regular thing, this will be the last episode of A Little Good News for a little while. I want to thank Rachel for going the distance with all these. She's been coming to my house, I've been going to the church, and she's been recording and editing all of these, but Rachel's on to other things now in her life. You'll still see her around, but she won't be doing exactly the same things that she's been doing for 2.5 years on our staff at Grandview. So thanks for watching. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.